That's it.
I don't sit down, so you probably know what's coming now, and you all know and hate it. It's time for activation, right? First thing is, because I sat in the back, only for the guys in the back, do you hear me loud and clear? Yeah? Really cool. So I usually don't do that stuff with activation because I know and hate it too, but the thing is I am jet-lagged. So what we're doing now, we just say together what we're talking about today. I say the future of, and you say? And I don't scream because otherwise I deafen you, but you are going to get louder every time. And by the time you're loud enough, I will say something and you will complete it, right? So I say the future of? The future of? The future of? Draw. Right, okay. We're going to work on this thing. So now I'm going to sit down and, well done, thank you. So, hello, I'm Bastian. I'm the host of today's session, and I'm part of the Draw.io team. I'm in the ecosystem for about 13 years now. And when my colleagues approached me to host this panel, I was like, okay, finally, yay, they gave me the elephant in the room topic. Great. And I like to share an anecdote with you. I'm not sure if you guys were part of the same event. I can't tell which one it was, but it was an event when Atlassian announced that they're going to depreciate server and that everything is going to be in the cloud. And we were in this talk, and they said, look, it's going to have those benefits, those advantages, everything is going to be fine. And that's a true story. In the line behind me, that one guy said, it's going to be fine, yes, but all of my customers will take their safety and compliance requirements with them from on-prem to cloud, and it's going to be fun. So back then, I was in our licensing team. I didn't have a clue about compliance. But by the time I joined the Draw.io team, I was like, okay, I'm not sure if this is an elephant at all, if it turned into a mammoth over time. And this is what we're going to do today. I think I don't need to explain compliance to all of you because you know what we're talking about. I Googled it anyway. So when we talk about compliance, it's just adhering to law and regulation, which sounds easy, right? Sounds so easy. But if you have a shift from on-prem to cloud and you're talking about, okay, your data is not behind the firewall anymore, and maybe your data even gets processed on a third-party server, then it's going to get complicated, and it's going to be paramount for customers that they are safe and that they're compliant. Luckily, we do have a panel today with a lot of cool guys talking about that topic. And maybe you just introduce yourself real quick.
I'm Aaron. You guys can hear me, right? From Fortified solution partner. I've been in the ecosystem for 7 years, and I'm an Atlassian fanatic, so it's me.
I'm Raimond Simonovskis. I'm a founder and CEO of eazyBI. Reports and charts. So you just saw what eazyBI is, and have been established the company 13 years ago, and probably one of the early Atlassian marketplace vendors. And so we have been both on the server side and the first one approved Atlassian Connect app on the cloud. So we have a whole experience.
Yeah, and my name is Andreas Springer. I'm a relatively new member of the Cybert group, Cybert family. I'm a product marketing manager for the app that Actonic is developing. Maybe you've seen me in the corner over here with a report builder. Report? Thank you. Next time I'm in such a well-climated room, I'm going to wear something with long sleeves because it's really cold.
Cool. So, getting to the panel discussion. And I do have my digital brain here because, we're talking about compliance, and I need to be sure that I stick to all the questions that we committed to be compliant with them. So let's just start with the icebreaker question, because this is something that came up when I prepared it. How many questions has your most complex compliance application had up to this very date? And maybe you can also scream if you can top that number.
So I asked my colleague who is dealing with that, and so we haven't counted exactly, but we have had questionnaires with more than 200 questions that you need to answer. But even trickier are some questionnaires which are in some system, and then as you answer some questions, then based on your answer, new questions appear, and then as you move forward, so actually you move backwards in terms of the progress, and then those are the most tricky ones. So you never know how many questions you will get.
I think the biggest was 328, and I was actually on the customer side at that time, giving it to the admin. So I've been in both places, and they're grueling, and they're not calm.
Yeah, I also had asked a colleague about that. I think for us it was not so much, around 150 maybe.
Okay. I thought I'm going to be the one with the highest question number because it was 285 actually, and I counted. But the fun thing is that 80 of these questions were questions where you had to upload documents. And I think 30 of these questions I uploaded the same document because I just wasn't sure which one they wanted. Anyone who can beat the 325, you said?
28.
28. Anyone in this room? You can beat it. Can you say how many? 400.
Oh, wow.
Goddamn, okay. But, I mean, to be honest, we're exaggerating here. So we're not talking about that you're getting questionnaires of 300 questions each and every week. So in the introduction I said, are we talking about an elephant? So in the overall situation, what do you think? Are we talking of an elephant nowadays? Are we maybe only talking about a horse or a dog or a mammoth?
It's an elephant, definitely. Let's agree on that. Yeah, I think so. And it's going to stay that way, I think, for a little while. What do you think?
Well, there are different customers, and with some who are fine with the standard terms that we provide, but some have some lawyers and some security stuff that they need to do something, and then they are trying to maybe sometimes not doing something that they could do by themselves and just asking to do that job on the vendors, on the apps.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it's kind of mixed there. There's like, I've been on both sides, and you see like the need of security teams to validate, and then you have like the vendor teams like, I thought I provided everything, and then now they want this too. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of a mix because every team's different, and I've worked in some places where they're very thorough in the security side, and in some places where it's not as grueling, and it's they kind of jump the hoops,
Following up, that's a good thing though, because following up on that one, because of course Atlassian is also kind of investing in compliance. For example, they started, I think the first one was the bug bounty program in cloud. And then they went on with the Cloud Fortified standard, which kind of implied data residency and stuff. So did you experience a change in customer behavior so that did something change that they had less requests to you guys?
So I think as the number of customers in the cloud is growing, it's not reducing the number of these questions that we get, but so that was one of the reasons why 2 years ago, so we started SOC 2 implementation, and then we implemented also it using Drata as a platform where we created all our security policies and our report. And nowadays we try to put as much as possible information so that customers can get by themselves in a self-service way. And nowadays, when we get all these questionnaires, so it's much easier for us just to answer yes, 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 and then see our procedures, our security policies, our SOC 2 report. There are all the details with all the answers. So we try to make it more possible for them to do it in a self-service way.
Yeah, I've been in the place where the security team is saying, hey, Aaron, what does Cloud Fortified mean? And then now I'm digging to find out, like, what does that all really include? And it's not clear cut for the security team or the admin that's going out to start that security review. And so there's unanswered questions sometimes. And then that's why they hand us the big, long, really questionnaire. So.
Yeah, we kind of merged. We're not compliant anymore, by the way. I have to have a compliance issue here because we kind of merged the next 3 questions already. So what have you done so far to decrease the effort and to kind of also not only scale the performance of the tool itself, but also scale the compliance part? You said you use the Strata tool.
Yeah, so we use the Strata tool as we want to focus our work so that we do the meaningful work, and we don't whatever is possible to automate, we want to automate it. And definitely, so if anyone is going to the SOC 2 certification or ISO 27K certification, I would definitely recommend to use some platform which helps you. And so there are platforms like Strata, like Manta, SecureFrame, others. So they are quite similar. And this is definitely one of the best factors how you can optimize and minimize your work on supporting that, automate whatever evidence collection you can do, and automate how you can provide this information to your customers. That's definitely the best way how to do that. Sure.
I mean, Andreas and we both know what we are doing at Cybert when it comes to scaling. Do you have anything? But before I say that.
We've used a lot of different tools, like on the security team, or I've asked other teams to like provide that kind of framework for us, and that has like made it easier, you know. But I think there's some other things that we can do too, to like in the marketplace that could make it.
Namely,
yeah, like if you have a SOX, like seeing that badge there right away just reduces a lot of questions. If you are SOC 2 or 27,001, you know, like, or 9,001 or whatever it is, the compliancy that's your framework to and compliant to at the vendor side. If I'm an admin and I go to there and I see that, I can mark that off on my list, right? And a lot of those questions are already solidified.
Okay. Because I just said we both know where our not pain points, but where we are heading at the moment, because we are in the middle of getting ISO and SOC 2 certified. So you have that already. So you're talking, and speaking of certifications, of course, that's probably the biggest chunk to kind of scale this process. How is your kind of opinion on that, your impression? How much did the effort you had to put into that process decrease from then?
No, at first I think that it is valuable to do it internally as well. So don't think about it just that it's to demonstrate something externally, everything is fine for us. So while implementing such systems like SOC 2 or ISO 27K, so even before we thought that we already are doing most of the things how they should be done, still we found, so this is a good internal checklist, whether you are really doing everything correctly. Then it also was very good to improve the education of your employees, of your team, about all the different things, and that it regularly reminds that every year, so you should review and reread all the procedures and go through that. And so don't assume that you are already doing everything perfectly. Implementing such system will help you really do things that you thought that you are doing, but maybe not everyone is doing that.
By the way, questions to the audience, and especially the app vendors. Who has either ISO or SOC 2 certification yet already? Well, that's quite a few. Thank you.
Well, these are my colleagues, so therefore, yeah.
And building up, I mean, when you talk, speaking of certifications, of course, you mostly hear ISO, you hear SOC 2. And maybe another question, who's familiar with the Atlassian certifications page of the audience? Yeah, okay. And do you follow that page, and do you also kind of make up your mind which certification to get next? Because the first one that comes to my mind, because we had this question recently, for example, is the FedRAMP certification, to be compliant with US governmental institutions and to also sell cloud to them, or your solution in the cloud to them?
Well, it's always dependent, so whether So you never will get 100% of all the customers because of some compliance reasons, and you always need to look at some cost benefit of that. And so currently, so to get at least one of the SOC 2 or ISO 27K certifications, so it will cover the majority of customers who are interested in your solution. So then if you are targeting some specific industry where some specific requirements are needed, then probably some other certifications are needed. But at the current stage, while not everyone is having yet these certifications, so then if you have done either SOC 2 or ISO 27K, you are already in top 10% of the vendors, and probably that will be good enough when everyone will have SOC 2 or 27K certification. Then probably you will want to differentiate.
Do you check benchmarks, by the way, from other providers, app vendors, solution partners? Does that make sense at all?
So as an admin, I have lots, like going through and trying to validate which vendors are out of the box already acceptable to put into the environment. And that's something that I've done over time as an admin to validate, like pre-validate all this stuff, because these are tools that a lot of places are using, like eazyBI or Tempo or some of the bigger names in the industry, and that's kind of helped put the admin team and the security team in a better place, because now you already have that data, you already done the legwork for that, you know. So I think that's important to like check out the other vendors and see what they're doing or not doing, and that can give you that like.
We as an app vendor community are very friendly and helpful to each other, so I would definitely recommend to, if you are going to implement one of these applications, look at who others have done it and ask whether you can share the experience. So that's what we did, that we talked with some in the Atlassian community. Also, we knew some others who have done, so just to give some recommendations how to go with this implementation. Check their security pages and just steal something, yes, but in a good way. Because I think that's also valuable for customers if we do these things similarly and not just inventing something new. And as more as we will do things similarly, it's easier for customers as well to evaluate, okay, these vendors look similar in this security and compliance area.
So one couple of years ago, we had a vendor that we really needed to use for our own compliance in the cloud by having replication and backup, and they weren't at that level of SOC 2 yet. And we got on a call and we really need your product, and we begged to work with them, and they went ahead and like, we're going to get that SOC 2. And after they got that SOC 2, we started that process to work with them. So I think the vendor being open to being able to go to the next level for the client and for the customer is really important too. And I've seen some of the vendors do that, go above and beyond to become compliant so that they can work with specific clients. And I think that's important, to be open-minded. And
that's a good thing to talk about, though, because I mean, beyond certifications, beyond what Atlassian requires us to do, of course, we can always do stuff that even goes beyond whatever, but it suits the customer's needs, correct?
Right.
So, for example, from our part, although we are not ISO or SOC 2 certified yet, we, for example, we deployed we call it the data governance feature, or even lockdown feature, so people can be assured that their data is, even if they use services that require a third-party server, that this one is located the same data center as their Atlassian Cloud instance. So although we can say, look, we don't have the certification yet, but we take care of your data, and you can even you can do the settings yourself. Like this lockdown feature, you can kind of reduce the endpoints to your browser and the Confluence Cloud. So of course, then you reduce the features in the app, but you can be sure that no one is even theoretically capable of viewing your data. So that's something that we did. But again, like you said, we can learn from each other, and the community is a healthy community. So random applause for you guys. So we kind of have the first one, compliance, kind of set now. The other one is legal requests when it comes to end-user license agreement. What's your experience here?
We provide standard terms of service and standard license agreement, and so currently we agree only there's one point where you can opt out of publicity rights, and now we get requests for some custom terms of service, and currently our approach is that, well, this is not a scalable approach and we can't really do that, and so there are thousands of customers, so we can't have thousands of individual custom agreements, and we will take down our needs, and probably when we will review and prepare the next version, we will include that, but currently not. In majority of the cases, I think that some legal people on the other side so noted, well, so they didn't agree on these terms, but then that's a business decision whether to use that product or not. And in majority of the cases, if business really needs that, so they start using your product. And currently, we are not agreeing in to that. And if some who are just starting in the marketplace and will just think that, well, we are ready to agree on anything, we just need new customers. So, well, be cautious with that, as you might get into troubles when you will really agree on the terms that you are not ready to agree.
Your number one thing that you don't agree on.
Sorry, what?
Your number one thing that you don't agree on when it comes to custom end-user license agreement.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a marketing person, I'm not really the guy who's taking care of that, right? But I know that we've received just recently such a request for let's say, an addendum to the EULA, and we check it and then we respond to it. I mean, for us, we just deal with it on a like a case by case basis.
Okay.
But so did it include any financial liabilities as well as? So these are always the trickiest ones, so that you can put in risk the whole your company if you will agree to
that's right.
Unlimited financial liabilities.
Yeah, definitely.
Please be cautious because
that's
Aaron?
I don't really go into that realm in the legal, and I usually let legal take care of that. But I have had situations similar to that in the compliance side where, the legal team didn't want to sign a BAA from the cloud side, and which is kind of a legality. And it's like, well, then you're not going to get through your HIPAA cert on this without doing that. So it's kind of on that fine line of the same thing. I think sometimes, businesses have to secure their end. So they have the generalization to fit every need, and I think that sometimes as clients we have to be okay with that, So coming from both sides, I think there has to be a medium between it.
I think that's also like a challenge that came up was, I mean, I never touched bases with legal issues. I'm not a lawyer, never studied that. So when this all came up, we knew, okay, I do have a gut feeling if this is okay. This is my microphone. Do you hear that too, or is it just me? Somebody help me, please. Okay, cool. Where did I start? We of course we had to include our legal team. So and they also have limited resources. So we wanted to scale that process anyway. So we kind of made up FAQs and stuff like this. My number one thing is the change of court, because the change of course kind of can mess up anything. Our legal team is kind of based so far in Europe only. So by the time a US company approaches us saying we want a change of court, we say, okay, but then we say, yes, that we're fine with US laws, and we don't know what is behind everything. So we try also to have a win-win situation, our end-user license agreement, our data processing agreement, all of that. So we try to be as like a win-win situation. But the change, of course, is something we never accept. So that would be my or our number one thing to say this way.
The other, I would suggest, to always limit your financial liability. So, for example, that it's some multiple maybe of the amount that customer has paid you. So if you will agree to some unlimited financial liabilities, then and for me as a business owner, so that's quite important, so that I don't want to lose the business.
Okay. So we kind of, up to this very point, we spoke a lot about app vendors. Maybe we also addressed the solution partners among us. So what do you think is the biggest challenge regarding compliance? How do you work with especially migrations and new projects using the various legal documents in the app vendor side? Because especially solution partners always have to deal with all of the legal requirements from all the different app vendors. I mean, there can be 15 to 20 apps in a complex project.
Yeah, that's a soon one.
That's a fun one.
That's a fun one, right? I know.
So I do that every week. Every day of the month is dealt with migrations and, the legalities and compliances. And, we put it into a 4-phase approach. We let them know at the beginning the legalities of it, the data extraction if we have to. Like, we put that up front. We put that into the risk matrix for them. So everything is up front with it. When it comes to the app vendor portion, we're usually working directly with the vendors to, be able to, like, if they have the migrated path or they have a migration path that's not automated, we work with them to do that, and we fill the gaps with that knowledge and we document. Okay. And so when we're giving that data back to them in that each phase approach, we're saying, here's what we did. We talked about what we're going to do, and now we're showing you what we did, and we do that through all phases, and that includes all of that documentation for the app vendor portion. So I think documenting the processes on the solution partner side is very important, so that the clients see that and they have a clear, understanding of all those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Following up on this one, are there any compliance-related Atlassian apps that you would recommend to customers?
Yeah. Lots of them. We're here. I think living in the compliance space for the last 7 years, working with Revise has been one of the most amazing experiences, and that team is amazing. So if you're under compliance and you need backup and restore, I would say check them out, because they've helped me in a pinch, and they've been really good to work with, and they're really good at adding that next thing that you need, and they will help you fulfill that compliance in the clouds.
Yes, well, I would have to recommend our application that we have. How could I not, right? So because we are approaching the whole topic from a little bit of a different side. So we've talked about now cloud migrations and the infrastructure side of things, and encryption and data transfers and data residency and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is that the data that is inside of an instance is also something to be considered, right? So administrators need to think about how do I manage the data that I have inside of my Jira and my Confluence? How can I find out where do we have sensitive information, personal identifiable information? How can I deal with that? What do I do if an employee leaves the company, right? How can I make sure that I'm compliant, again, to these regulations of what I'm allowed to store and for how long and so on, and how can I purge my system after this time frame? And it's not always legal issues, actually. So especially in Germany, we have customers who have requirements from the Workers' Council inside of their company, who have some things they need to be addressed. And that's where we come in with the application that we are offering. It's all about user anonymization, finding those sensitive data points, credit card information, passwords, whatever. Those are the top things that we usually deal with. And now, how to purge the system, how to basically disconnect the knowledge and the information that we have inside of our systems from the personal data, as it is sometimes requested. So, that's what I would recommend, obviously.
Okay.
So we don't use any other marketplace apps for that, but I would like to remind that everyone should develop these compliance and security things into their apps, as you can't really outsource compliance and security somewhere else. So the main risks are what you are doing in your app, and you need to build into audit logging of changes, so security controls, and you need to improve your app that it can provide all the necessary information, and then you, in case of the troubles, how you can investigate what happened and what you should do.
And I think in general it's important to point out that no tool, whatever you have, will automatically make you compliant, right? So in the previous panel, Rodney put it very well. It's all about the right people, the right tools, and the right processes. And if you don't have these three also in the topic of compliance, data security, data privacy, and so on, it will not work. So if you install our app, you will not be automatically compliant. There's no way that will ever going to be happening. So you need to have your processes behind it. You need to have the people who are taking care of that and who know what they have to do with the tools that are available. Just like, as a woodworker, you need to know how to operate your whatever kind of saw to get the cut that you want, right?
Yeah, I can agree with that. That's amazing. That's like I tell all the people I work in compliance with, it's process. So get your process in place. That's important. That's a good one.
Is there maybe one last question around that topic? Is there, and I need to read, again, need to be compliant. Taking app offerings to the cloud, which are the fields that you would consider to be very sensitive? And where are the challenges that you are facing? Because, most of the time, doing the cloud shift means having more opportunities, especially nowadays where you have the cloud-first approach and new features mostly are done for the cloud apps. But sometimes it's also, is there anything you had on-premise but you can't have it on cloud, and how do you deal with that?
So in terms of what fields are the most sensitive, I don't think it's about the fields, it's about the content of those fields, right? So it can be any fields. And again, I talked about passwords and credit card information and so on. That could be in a description of a ticket or in a comment or on a conference page, obviously, and so on and so forth. So I guess it's not about, it's important where you have this kind of information, but the type of information itself is the most critical thing, I would say.
One of the things if you are migrating your server to apps to the cloud is to think about the data isolation, because most probably previously it was just one data center app for one customer and everything was together. So then it wasn't maybe so important and so dangerous if something leaked from one customer to other. But as in the cloud, so most often these are multi-tenant apps. And so how you isolate the data between all the tenants. So this is the new thing that you need to think really carefully. And as a general, so as I discussed with my colleagues, so probably the biggest risk in the cloud is data disclosure. Because this is what you can't fix. Any bug, if you discover, so you can fix it. But if the data was leaked somewhere to someone else, so this happened and you can't fix it anymore. And so that's where we should spend the most effort, how to educate, how to check what controls should be done to avoid this.
Great. Yeah, I agree there. And I've worked with clients where we've had to set a standard inside and create our own standards, not just process, but standards. And there's no PII allowed because you're in healthcare, or the situational things. So making sure you have that baseline of what data is okay to be there and what data cannot be there. I think that's really super important. That's a good one.
That's a very good closing argument. We only have one question left. And I think we all agree in this room that this importance of compliance was kind of caused by the depreciation of Conference Server or Atlassian Server in general. So we opened this discussion with an elephant in the room. Let's close it because this room is so big it can fit multiple elephants. When is Atlassian going to depreciate data center and we're going to have the next wave of compliance issues? Check with your compliance officer before you answer.
Such kind of questions I always answer that it's hard to predict, especially future. You can then later you can explain everything, what happened in the past. But in our case, so therefore we don't want to bet just on one scenario, and therefore we support equally well both our cloud and data center customers. So we have the same app with the same functionality, and we are happy with any scenario. And so therefore, so this is also one of the business risks for us as app vendors. So whether it will be more cloud, more data center, well, try to minimize your risks also in this area, and don't make the bets that you can't. Well, yeah, you can go make some, hopefully small bets here in casinos and lose your money, but don't bet all your company on the things that you can't control.
So maybe closing statement, commit to everything and be compliant.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Be ready to any change.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Okay, thank you guys. I mean, this is a panel discussion, but I mean, if any one of you has a question left which you would like to see covered, you can scream.
Great. And there is a lot of, we talked about right hours and after where is that answer. We have built a solution partner. We have figured through that to make job easier for you guys after there's a track answer some of the questions ourselves based on the public application and you have on your basis. However, some of our customers don't bet that now so hasn't come from the vendor direct. Question is there something else that the solution partners could do to make the compliance processes easier than other?
Yeah, I repeat the question for the camera. That solution partners always try to kind of cover questions that come from customers and answer these questions on behalf of the app vendor. But often you have the challenge that customers just don't accept it because it's not coming from the app vendor who's legally kind of committed to that, right? So how can solution partners anyway support this entire compliance process on the app vendor side? That's a good question, by the way.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because if it's in the documentation from the app vendor, then it's information from the app vendor, I would think. So what we are doing additionally is we have completed the assessment, the risk ledger assessment it's called. It's like a platform where we can fill out those questions from our side and make it available to anyone. So just to decrease the effort in case those questions come up. Maybe that's something that would help.
Well, probably if you could answer and then just send to us for verification. And as in our case, we try to, we are not inventing these answers, and we are not eager to write new different kind of answers to each questionnaire. So we try to make public whatever we have, and therefore we have our SOC 2 report with all the procedures, and we grant self-service access to all customers who are interested. We have our Trust Center portal where everyone can see that, and we can grant that to the solution partners as well. And probably it might help if we provide you access, and if you work frequently, for example, with us, you could provide some standard answers. You can ask and verify whether we are happy with that, and we can then confirm that's fine, probably in that way.
That's one of the things I do is I'll take the security page as like in my partners folder, and I'll just send that to the client, point to them to the same place that the vendor themselves are going to tell them to go, and then if they have questions, work through that. I try to frontline as much as I can, but we've had the same thing happen where, that didn't come from the vendor itself, and it's like, I'll reach out to so-and-so, they'll get back to you, and just get them in the loop. But I think if you can just send them to the self-service right away, that usually eliminates like 90% of their questions.
Well, one additional thing that I have been thinking of, and in different areas, it probably would be good if we as marketplace vendors are communicating, coordinating our efforts, and that if we provide in more standardized way all this information, and as I understand that from the customer's perspective, it might be hard to nowadays to review. All marketplace partners have a lot of different terms of services, different security pages, and it's better that if we make things similar, and then if they have seen that it's one marketplace partner provided information in this way, other looks similar, then it's easier for customers as well. So that's my call to cooperation between marketplace partners to try to standardize these compliance things, how we do, so that it looks similar to customers.
I would add up on this thing. I think what you as solution partners can do, because you can't get around this liability issue. If it's a liability issue, the app vendor has to kind of sign everything that the customer wants. But I mean, we all know the challenge that especially when it comes to the self-service customers, we don't have a contact. Most of the time, the technical contact is like admin@company.com, and then try to get in contact with those people. It's hard. But on the app vendor part aside, it's like we try to also scale this process, like create FAQs, be better, kind of tweak our documents so some question won't even arise in the future. So what you as solution partners, of course, can do is, okay, I do have a customer, he brings up that new issue that is not answered, and they do not accept what I'm telling them. Speak to us, because you are the mouthpiece of the customer, and then we can tweak everything. And so adding up on this cooperation topic, that would be my suggestion. Again, great question, thank you. So what's the time? I completely lost the time, but we're done, more or less. Do you have another question? Okay.
Okay, everyone's got to jump up now because you guys look like you're like really, you're just struggling here. And that's compliance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a head story. Compliance is.
Thanks, guys.
Very
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.